Thank you. I'm Michael once again, and I have with me very lucky to have our Learning Support Director, who has been at ABAC for how long?
Oh, God.
Yeah, you told me yesterday in the car.
Used to be developmental studies with, those were the old days.
Yeah. Okay. She won't answer. But but has been. This is my first year at Abraham Baldwin, and Kathy was the one that I first approached and knew that could help us start to get this up and running, and has been absolutely instrumental in going to the deans and crunching the numbers and doing a lot of work that I don't understand yet. Yes. So I came to this from my PhD work in Milwaukee, a very working class, very diverse city. And I worked in a similar pilot program where we had an entrance test, but they didn't have to take the same entrance for the exit. Okay, and so we noticed that we could take a borderline cohort of students and mainstream them into what was 101 there, along with a lab editing college writing. Now, there are different versions of this around the country in American colleges and universities. And I didn't give it much thought. I taught about 5 sections of this 105 and was very lucky. Each class had about 7 students. And the rules were laid down pretty tight. It was very Midwest. You didn't know what class they were coming from. You didn't know who their instructor was. And you talked with them about their writing and only their writing. No reading, their writing, period. And it was a great experience, a very challenging experience. And when I arrived at Abraham Baldwin, just sweating from finishing my dissertation, I immediately taught some basic writing classes, our 099. And this is where I really, aren't these classes, isn't basic writing where we really learn who we are as teachers? Am I wrong about that? Oh, I feel like I'm stepping out onto a precipice for a bungee jump. I really find out. And I hadn't thought about this pilot program I was involved in. It was just part of my studies. But I noticed the students had the trouble with the grammar and the style, but had also an incredible burgeoning syntactic fluency. Really wanted to write in the rich text of academic languages. And I remember this one student wrote I believe in the organic model of writing, which is they write a response and they don't even know that will later become a full paper. We grow it like a plant. And many of you have similar models, I'm sure. And for this response, they were responding to an essay in our text, Burger Queen, and they were writing about their various jobs. And just the way they were expressing these life experiences very deeply and very willing to share this writing. I really thought some of these students really are ready for the work of first-year writing. I remember another student in responding. I love student writing. We'll look at some later. You'll be my students. I remember this one student was responding to, I think his name's, who does English is a crazy language? What is that? Letterer? I can't. Letterer. Thank you. Yes. And the student gave this amazing critique about it, really raising an inquiry-based question, saying, why doesn't he write about something that matters? He's like, who cares that, French fries aren't in France? And really challenging this text in ways that I just thought, I want to work closely with these students. So I went to Kathy and we started envisioning it. And now you're getting us in the moment of this envisioning process where we're really at the point now, aren't we, where we had our vision and now we're seeing what it's actually going to become. Because there are always institutional constraints, many of them which make the program better. You're slowly figuring out what works for your institution. So I'd like to first deliver some of the theory and history behind this. Before I move on, a little background about our institution. It's extremely rural, extremely diverse. We have a lot of students that were raised, right on the surrounding farms. Major programs in turfgrass management, applied science, yes, and I love getting those students in my classes. They'll come in and they'll sit like this. What do you have to say to me? And it's not every day. A bad day teaching's a bad week, and a good day, well, it's just a good day. But sometimes when I can once in a while get that moment where they engage with a text is really what I think the work's about. So a quick search on the Conference on Basic Writing listserv. How many of you are on that? CBW, wonderful. Please sign up. Google Conference on Basic Writing. The pre-conference is right now in Atlanta. And 4Cs is happening. It's starting. I'm going Saturday, I guess. Yes. Are you going? Okay. But you've got to get on the Conference on Basic Writing listserv. On any given day, this will reveal the field's dominant current concern. How do we elevate, politically and institutionally, the position of basic writing as a predominantly non-credit course? How do we elevate and renew the energies of our pedagogies, and with our pedagogical efforts, basic writing and learning support? And some of this will be on the handout that was in your packets as well. Most importantly, how do we come to better value student text as the center of course content, interpretive processes, and inquiry-based learning, question-based learning? There are now a wide variety of textbooks and hand manuals to help us along, but at the end of the day, what is it we are preparing students for, and how do we know when the writing and learning skills have improved? Well, we have tests, okay? And my dissertation advisor would always ask me, how do you know when the writing improved? How do you know? When it looks like yours? I think that's probably true for me. And I try to adjust that. Indeed, answering all of these questions would require far longer than a day, an hour, a week, a career. But it is the asking of the questions that really sparks our desire to understand what we are really teaching when we teach basic writing. And these questions have led to a variety of influential writing programs that are deeply student-centered and focused on reorganizing curricular goals in terms of student success in writing. These programs provide students with credit hours to begin the challenging work of writing alongside their peers. It's a very important component. And while there are now a wide variety of alternative curricular designs in these colleges and universities, many absolutely represented here today, we do important work. Most alternative forms operate on the assumption that non-credit remedial writing courses may in fact hinder improvement writing, retention, and overall academic success. Now, I am heartened that our questions, your questions, have led to this realization and the energy to form learning support programs that work for our various institutions and student populations. Our questions are now being asked, heard, and often answered with cutting-edge pedagogical and administrative programs. In many cases, we are being heard in answers with 4-credit writing programs in which students earn credit toward graduation, begin the work of first-year writing, partake in the same challenging processes of their peers in grappling with assignments. Students are, as our handout points out, benefiting from the kinds of focused instruction and peer feedback that these smaller writing labs that deal specifically with student writing. That's it, student writing. Indeed, studies in composition and rhetoric over the last 30 years reveal that students found to be borderline in placement tests perform better than when mainstreamed into general education. These students quite often reveal what standardized tests cannot, that one of my favorite authors, Mina Shaughnessy, says that there is a logic of student error. I think about the compass when I look at that short quotation. This extends beyond a student's ability to choose a single correct answer on these placement tests. This is the problem we recognized at our institution. Certainly, there are those students who benefit greatly from a traditional basic writing course, and these are wonderful to teach. But there are also a great number that, with some closer attention, are ready to begin the work of first-year writing. Thus, we found in our envisioning process that a mid-range scoring of cohort of basic writing students would benefit from the kinds of community interactions that focused editing workshops offer. And so we began to envision this curriculum that we hope will one day keep students from spending 2 or 3 years trying to complete learning support English. And the compass is a major holding point here. Our English 1101, with the paired small writing lab, English 1000, editing college writing, seeks to provide an extra instructional space where students participate and learn as a group of writers engaged in the practice of analysis and multiple ways of academic writing. As we envision it, class time in English 1000 is divided between developing strategies, between negotiating a writer's ideas, and those presented in the various course texts of English 1101. And the compass is not going away, instruction in basic concepts of grammar and style, also through student writing. I think these are great discussions to have. Because writing is situated within various rhetorical and material constraints, the primary text of English 1000 is comprised of the writing students produce for English 1101. We hope that the pedagogy we have in mind for this class will better organize for students' success, increase retention rates, and/or reduce the amount of time students spend in learning support, enable student progress through the first-year writing program, and maximize student success in writing by providing an extra or third space for compositional practice. English 1101, English 1000, for the pedagogy, is student-centered. Our experience and ongoing studies in the fields of composition rhetoric and developmental writing have shown time and again that students learn best when engaged as a group of learners in the rich text and languages of academic discourse, rather than the 5-paragraph basic writing genre. It is a genre. It's a powerful genre. Students still do things within it where there's much to recommend it, but it's a genre that I think they fall into naturally after so many years, as was discussed. We operate on the assumption that basic writing must be treated as a challenging area of research, pedagogy, and student learning, and that the course is enhanced when student text and writing practices are the primary content of the course. Can you do that? Can you make student text the primary content in your classes? You know, you read some stuff. You have some content about, but student text. You use them? Okay. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to use them, but I mean, really getting students to engage with one another's work, to quote each other, to really learn how to critique one another's writing. The work of interpretation and inquiry-based knowledge building form the core of the curriculum. Like my students, you'll get to make fun of my handwriting. You know, most of our students, when they come to us, I think they're fairly good at information-based writing. And we really, at least by the time they're in 101, we really want to lead them toward the inquiry-based. Where you know, what was the word you used? You know, I guess this would be the banking model. Information goes in, and you put it back on the page. And over here, inquiry-based, you're really engaging with the text. You're asking questions. You're asking the difficult questions. Our basic writing students can do this. I'll give you some examples in a few moments. Also, our students come to us quite field-dependent. right? They need the constructs represented in textbooks, the how-tos. So to move them towards some kind of field independent where they are developing these new questions for themselves and really challenging, engaging with text, that's a lot of the work that can get done through student text. Students in the lab and in the paired 1101 are challenged with difficult text, student and published, and ideas that require a questioning mind. And developing one's writing and ideas is a recursive process. It's read, write, go write about it again. Read the same thing, write about it again. Ask a new question, write about it again. Bring 3 questions to class, write about it again. In-class writing. I really feel by the middle of the term, students really start grappling with some of this language. So some of the difficulty, let's see. Okay, here near the end of the term, I like to always I like to call the thesis statement a controlling purpose. Maybe to get away from the idea that this is my thesis first paragraph. That's a great place to start. And through what we read and what we discuss through the student text, most of the analysis is done in an interpretive community. We'd all be in a circle, and I'd have anonymous student text. Here's sample A. Here's sample B. And at first, students are uncomfortable with this, but they grow to love it, looking at one another's text in this way. And sometimes when we're working on the concept of controlling purpose, or in 1101 and in our planned editing college writing, I'll put what they came up with and really let them discuss this. You can see they've taken on some kind of questioning mind. Has technology helped our society today, or has it just made us lazy and dependent upon it to live? You get down to, let's see. We all have imagined ourselves doing something out of the ordinary, even heroic, and these stories reflect that need and ability in a person to imagine a different world. And despite all the good that we immediately see from the advancements of our world, one would have to stop and think, what is lost in the shuffle? And sometimes we'll get down to one, and students will really say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by this, Billy or Bobby? So I like to have them grapple with some difficult ideas and have them work with it. This is really based in a Pittsburgh school of early composition days where Ways of Reading came out, Donald Bartholomew, and it had some of the more difficult texts that students could really, over time, sink their teeth into. And earlier in the term, things haven't quite come together in the same way yet. Sometimes we'll get to something like 4. I will tell you about my summer job. And in 1101 or 099, we'll say, well, what do you want to say here? What's beyond the basic thesis? And I love to hold students to this, to really take their analysis as far as they can. Can I treat you like students for 1 second? Okay, some say no, some yes. All right, so here's, can everyone see that okay? Here's a 5-paragraph essay. Can you read it and tell me what you noticed about it? Anything, there's no wrong answer. All right.
I don't think, if you want to call it the controlling point,
Yeah.
the student's really saying what he or she means.
Mm-hmm. Great. So it's awkward, but you think they're getting some point across, Peggy?
Not clearly.
Mhm.
I think the student's trying to say technology is dumbing us down, but
Uh-huh. You want more as a reader?
mhm.
Okay. Anyone second Peggy's concerns for this student, this sample writer? Yes.
What I'm saying is something that I see in not just developmental students, but also in teaching like composition, is that students write the way that they speak.
Great.
And I see that throughout with the exception of the direct quote you have. But there also, in this sample, it shows a lack of understanding with grammar skills, punctuation skills, and
Yeah.
just helping the reader to understand his or her point of view.
Yeah, great. I love, I'm trying to avoid the initiation response explanation model, you know, but I like, what's your name?
Nakia.
Okay, yeah, I love this point that you went straight to the quotation. We like that. You know, there is to me, with all those issues, there's something here that if the student could work closely with someone on these other issues that you and Peggy have pointed out, that a lot of work could be done, because there's some syntactic fluency, there's this wonderful academic rhetorical move, as Carr says, you know. We like, you know, we like when students engage with this academically. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Repetitive and unnecessarily wordy in some places.
Repetitive.
Redundant.
It seems as though the author is trying to write a response to that. Is it Nicholas Carr who will make
Oh, yes,
it?
wonderful, yeah.
And it would be incredibly effective if the writer acknowledged this. Just jumping into Carr, I like the quote as well, but rather than just jumping straight into, as Carr says, well, who is Carr? What is this person writing about? Why do I care?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it could use a little more audience awareness about
Yeah.
sort of what the reader brings to the table. But
Great.
yeah, I think that's it.
What, can I push you a little further?
Sure.
Since you've read that article. I mean, what do you think this author really needs to do with Carr? I mean, for one thing, introduce him. There's that practical matter, but what?
Read it again.
Yes. Yeah. What's the problem at the center of the text? What's the problem with the assumptions being made? Yeah, very good. I read it again. And how would you encourage a student to do that?
I would tell the student, reread that.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
I would
okay.
probably give the student some leading questions and say, here, I want you to find out this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Go do that.
Yeah,
Come back and talk to me.
that's great. And at this point, anyone else, would you first handle the content-based stuff, the inquiry-based work, or the grammar? No right answer. If you were sitting with this student?
The answer would be yes.
Yes to what?
Yes.
To all. Okay, all right. Yeah.
It's a combined thing. It's when my students write an essay, the first essay, I schedule an individual appointment with each student. And then a student comes in, we sit down, and I lay the paper out, and I say, okay, I'm now going to read you what you actually wrote, which is probably different than what you think you wrote.
That's right. Yeah.
And I begin to read their writing to them. And as we're sitting next to each other, we work through the introduction, which is almost all we get through the first meeting.
Yeah.
And then we discuss how to make this introduction better. If in this case where you could take things and turn them around and add some detail, you could turn it into a pretty solid introduction rapidly.
Right.
And then we deal with the grammatical mistakes that seem consistent, like the lack of apostrophes.
Yeah.
Or question marks, something pretty basic.
Right.
And easy to do. But I wouldn't focus on everything.
Uh-huh.
I'd leave the pronoun reference problems for the next meeting.
Wonderful. Okay.
So,
Great. Great.
I'd have them go back to the article first.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have them go back to the article. I would probably talk about some grammar rule just in there as practice, but
Yeah.
this essay, if this were my student, this essay would change pretty dramatically between this first draft and the second
Mhm.
draft. So to me, there's no real point in cleaning this one up,
Mm-hmm.
except to practice with
Yeah.
an actual text
Uh-huh.
agreement or the pronouns or the
Yeah.
commas.
Mhm. I and would you maybe hand out what other people said about Carr in the class?
That's a good question.
Sometimes I'll do that, and people are like, oh, there's a lot more going on in this, or I could use a lot more textual evidence, key terms. Basic writers they're ready to use these things. I know you've seen it. Just the permission, I think, needs to be granted sometimes. But I agree. Can the grammar be taken care of in class? You suggest? Would you ask other students?
About the grammar?
Yeah. You don't think they'd know, Peggy?
And peer,
Uh-huh.
in my luck with peer editing, students always say, they don't see the stuff you do.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, peer editing
It
works.
depends if you've got the rare student who actually can.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Uh-huh.
Peer
Okay.
editing works much differently when it's on the board, when everybody peer edits the same paper,
Yes.
than it's,
Or passed out in text. Yeah.
yeah.
You might. I'd love to ask about the apostrophes. You know, I'd love to point out the. I think the move toward these academic moves that is really happening here, and really keep working on those, and then the both and the
Now,
grammar.
Another thing I deal with on a very regular basis is the grammar in this compared to what I normally see on a first draft of paper is flawless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think of the apostrophes here and the pronoun references, those are razor blade cuts. They're
Yeah.
not going to kill you.
Yeah.
They reduce your credibility slightly.
Uh-huh.
But what I deal with is massive subject-verb agreement, which is a kiss of death error in the real world.
Yeah.
You look
Yeah.
like an idiot.
Okay.
And so we've got to deal with that grammar right at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you're talking this way, you're not going to be credible in a college level workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could get to more depth and content. So to me, this would be a glorious thing to be able to deal with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Great.
I just want to check to see if I'm following what you're saying. What I'm hearing is that it would be a shame to crush these budding academic strategies and this sort of deeper engagement in the text, which can kind of be seen here. If I, as a teacher, sort of sleepily looked at it, saw only the errors, and just went to town on it, and now what Peter's talking about, the razor blade cuts, that's okay. But if I start suggesting too many changes, we might lose some of those budding strategies that you were talking about.
Mhm.
Am I sort of following? Or?
Absolutely. Perfect.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And because I think I don't know, maybe I've been an optimist or idealist with student text, but I've always loved student and really try to go first to what's really happening here. What are they doing? What's the thought process? What goals and outcomes of academic writing are they already taking on? These are questions I ask myself daily, and I really thank you for being great students. It's great. Now I was trained in a program that was deeply progressive, critical pedagogy based. I think a lot of people are surprised that I was really taught, you read the paper and comment and raise questions. You don't put a grade on it. You don't mark grammar. There's a portfolio review process at the end that makes students work for it. Ideally, we would all own our own assessment at the end of the term. And the assessment would be pedagogical. Now, I didn't accept all areas of that training. I really remember saying, but wait a minute, I like grammar. I like it as a subject. I think it's interesting and confusing and challenging. But that is certainly my training. You're right. What's your name? Chris. Chris, that you look for the parts that are budding. You look for the hot spots, maybe. And maybe that's holistic or organic. But I would like to bring Kathy in to talk about the forming of the class, our learning support director, to help me out there, and to talk about the ins and outs, the challenges we're facing. All of our visions have a way of being tempered by various institutional and material constraints. Is your vision exactly as it was when you started? Okay, all right, yeah. We can learn. Ours is just getting off the ground. Actually, it hasn't taken off. Okay, all right. So we're working on it.
We don't have any students.
Yeah. We've been extremely fortunate in the sense that we offer a version of basic writing as a 4-credit class. This is an amazing benefit, as a majority of programs I have worked in offer a non-credit class and perhaps a 1-credit lab. Our students have the potential to earn credits, exclamation point. It's ideological, it's political. Our version of basic writing, thus, is doing what much literature in the field calls for, making basic writing a real and viable course. However, we face challenges that really altered this vision, in some ways for the better. But what is clear, as Kathy will show us, is that the finished form of any pilot program will be different, not necessarily better or worse than the original, depending on your institution's specific needs and challenges. But that's really the point, I think, that we've seen represented here today, doing the work of figuring out what is best for your institution, your student population, the future of education, and continuing to ask the difficult questions along with your students. So this is what we mean by basic writing.
So Michael comes to me with this wonderful idea. And I'm the learning support director and said, here's the problems. So this is kind of what we worked out, and we went to the vice president every Friday for about 7 weeks to get approval. But basically what we're doing is we are taking students who are in the, from 51 to 59. So in Georgia, our cutoff score is 60. That's the university system, and that is also our cutoff score. So they have to be out of reading, and they're going to be put into an English 1101. And then what we've added is Michael's 1-hour lab, which is a little further down under problems. But these students, we're going to focus on incoming freshmen. Since I give the compass exam, it's very easy for me to pull up the people that are between these and that are out of reading, so they would fit into this pilot program. But we will be able to also accept, if we don't have, we have a limit of 24, and so if we will not get 24 in, then I might go with people who, are second time and they're out of reading and they only have English, which we all know is a very difficult time to try to get them credit courses when they're in that situation. So what I plan to do is this. We will send an invitation, a letter to these students explaining the program, inviting them to come and to, and it's really a win-win situation. They will not be taking English 99. They know they have been placed into English 99, and we are giving them this opportunity to take the credit class of English 1101. Now the trade-off is they will take that 1-hour lab for no credit. They're getting 3 hours, and they will be in class 4 hours. And the way I plan to explain it, if anybody asks me, is, all right, then go register for English 99, which is a 4-hour credit anyway. So when they do that, what I'd like to do is when they come into new student orientation, which we have about 6 or 7, so we wouldn't be that big of a group, they can meet with us, because I really want them to understand what they're signing up for, because I would not like this whole idea of them to get in, come here on the first day, we have this all set up, and then they're, I don't want to do this, and we put them in 99. So by the time the first day of class starts, I want this all set. So if they go on, then if you have anything to do with Banner, we have to shut these down, and then they would come to me and I would add them into Banner. All right? When they the way the class is set up is Dr. Lewis is teaching 2 English 1101s that meet 2 days a week. What we've done, and ours are set to 24 because our labs only have 24 computers. So we have saved 12 in each class. We don't want this to be just the ones that are 99, 1101, you know, we don't want these people, the learning support class, they will be integrated into his regular classes. And they won't have a big, you know, LS letter on top of their head, so nobody will know, you know, what they, you know, that they are in there as a special pilot program. So when they're accepted into there, then they would meet the third day, a day that we have not set yet. A third day they will meet and they will have this 1 hour lab, at least 1 hour, where you can read on the handout that he will work specifically with their essays, where they come in and work with the essays, things like that. But then I'm going to be there to kind of try to keep them also focused on the Compass exam. So I'll be there too to help with the whole editing. So I think the way we kind of had it planned is he kind of focuses on the content, and then, you know, I'll come over here and let's look at this grammar, because as we know, the Compass exam is an editing test, pure and simple. So that's what we'd like to look at. Now, the problem is, when I went to the president and the vice president was, first of all, well, we can't do that because they can't take 1101, they're in English 99. Well, I got permission from, you know, the university system of Georgia that we still had to work on it. So what's going to happen once they get in there? And if you look on your sheet, I have deleted this last line. This went to print before we got it, but on that paragraph you have a line that says, it ends with "and." All right, well, I've moved that.
This is what you need.
Yeah, it went down, and so it was moved. Yes, on there. But I've moved it to another place. So what we're doing, so you're going to have a line right there, because you've got to keep in mind, these people have to do 2 things. They have to pass English 1101, but they also have to pass the writing proficiency exam and the Compass exam. We're not saying just because you're in English 1101, you only have to pass 1101. You also have to pass the writing and so you have to do the learning support, plus you have to do the English 1101. So the big question that the president was saying is, so what happens if they pass English 1101, but they don't pass the Compass and the, and/or the writing proficiency exam? Well, I didn't have a problem with that because, so that we had to work on that. So this is how it came out. And this is how we're going to do. If you pass the WP and the Compass, what we do is we mark IS on banner, institutionally satisfied, and then they go and they pass, if they pass English 1101, they get full credit for the English 1101 course. What we plan to do is give them the Compass and the writing proficiency exam at midterm, at the end of session A, as we call it, right there at midterm. Because we're hoping that many of these students who are just, in some cases 1 or 2 points from being in 1101 anyway, we hope that they can pass the WPE, they can pass the Compass exam, and then from the rest of the semester you can only focus on the other. If they do not pass it, then I'll know who to focus more on as far as in our 1 hour lab. And I'm not above pulling them out and saying, let's come, I have some work for you to do. We have many great sites that we use and all like that's on the website anyway.
Did you say the WPE was given also at midterm or just the Compass?
We plan to give both of them. We won't really have permission, but we're going to, I give the Compass. It would just, they did. But I just think it would be really good if these people would not be focusing on Compass and WP at the end of 1101, type thing. And I do know everybody won't pass it, but then I think we could kind of refocus these guys, even if they have to do something outside of class. I mean, hopefully they're going to know what they're up against. Now, so if they pass the Compass exam yet fail of English 1101, this is my idea. If they pass the Compass exam and yet fail 1101, then we can still mark them as IS and Banner, and they can come back next semester and they just have to take 1101. If the way management wants us to do it, they have to pass English 1101 before they can take the Compass and the WPE. It just seems, you know, but that's how it's written up right now. That's why I took that line out and put it at the bottom where there's like concerns. You know, because if they pass it, we can't give them credit for 1101 until they're out of the Compass and the WPE, is the point. You know, but if you put it in the right order, we can get them out of learning support even though they didn't pass 1101, and then you come back and take 1101. If not, you're going to have them come back take 99, you know, type of thing. So this is how we're doing it. Now, if they fail 1101 WPE and Compass, like they abandon the class, you know, well then of course they fail everything. They could have a choice if they wanted to go back to English 99. Most of them would probably stay with 1101. If they do that, then we have to have a very heart-to-heart talk because they're going to work very closely with me. You know,
So can you clarify again if the student, you're proposing doing the Compass exit and the writing for the learning support about midterm. If they'll pass that,
we still have our 1 hour lab. They still are coming to a 1 hour lab the whole semester. That's part of the course. These students would be pulled out. We'd still be working on the WPE because every time you do practice and editing and all like that, you're working on the WPE. But I would pull them out and focus both in lab and outside of class. You need to work on grammar, you need to work on editing, you need to work on this.
right.
And for so many of them, it's just learning how to take the test, that Compass test, well, you know.
So would they get a chance to retest at the end of the semester?
Oh, yeah.
So they do midterm and end of the
Yeah.
semester?
Again, we don't have permission to do. Yeah, they get 2 attempts now anyway.
What is your reading exit score?
74, we just dropped it down,
Okay, from,
78.
okay. we're sitting
So
at
we're
70.
both, like I think a lot of us are, since we know what's coming in 2012, we're trying to get, you know, so we're now at state level for both English and reading. We're working on the math. They're still at 45. So,
Do they get 2 attempts at the writing sample? So we have 1 attempt and then 2.
basically what we do in the real WPE, they get a second attempt if they have an A or B average. But we would probably, since this is a pilot program, I think we have a lot more freedom. So we would give everybody a, you know, a second attempt where they would take it with all the other 99.
Open question time.
All right, I just wanted to show you at the very bottom down here, when we were trying to figure it out, I pulled up in 10 and 9 to make sure we'd have enough people. And you can see in 9, we must have had really good, you know, good people come in, much better than 10. So, but I'm hoping that, you know, we can get 24 out of it. If not, what we'll do is we'll go to the, you know, the people who are repeating the second time.
COME is Compass exam?
Yeah, COME is the Compass English. Yes. Okay.
I know you mentioned it, but what do you do if a student passes English 1101 and fails the Compass?
Then they would exit out of learning support English, but they would have to retake English 1101, hopefully the pilot program.
So if they pass English 1101, they still have to retake it?
No, wait, say again. I
They
missed
pass
it.
English 1101 and they fail the Compass. They pass English 1101, you don't have to
No,
pass
they're
the
not,
Compass.
that's the whole point that we're kind of working on. In other words, they cannot pass English 1101 unless they're out of the learning support.
Okay, so there's a caveat to this whole thing.
Right.
That
Yeah.
If you don't pass the other, that's what I wouldn't see in the
Because
visual.
I didn't see it here.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
that's down at
That condition is-
the problems.
That's something
You
you
know,
see.
yeah. Because, in other words, I firmly believe that you get these students who are within 9 points of being out anyway. And we work with them you saw how he teaches. You work with them that way. You work with them 1 hour outside of class once a week. So they're getting 4 hours like the regular 99 people. Plus, I keep them, the ones that aren't doing well in editing, literally make them come in and work with me separately. I'm hoping that we get most of them out.
But they're advised that if they
Yes.
don't, that they'll have to retake it.
That's why I like that one-on-one thing.
Do you have the learning support English to teach the English 1101?
Oh, yes. All of ours, we don't have any English people that teach learning support only. All our English people are 1101, 1102, 99. They rotate back and forth.
So preferably you have these students with the learning support English teacher for the English 1101, who teaches both.
Yeah, everybody teaches both. Everybody. We do not have any faculty just for learning support English.
Maybe I should know this, but I don't. Can you tell me briefly what's coming in 2020?
I don't know, Dr. Rogers.
I was wondering the same thing. What is coming in 2020?
Is it a great disaster movie?
But I mean, we've put in starting in the summer that everybody only has 2 attempts in learning support English and learning support reading and Math 97. They're going to be, what?
Let me go get Virginia and see if she has an answer for that.
Okay.
I think I may know. Okay, some classes, some institutions right now have 097 and 099 classes. And then.
I don't know anything. Jenny is coming.
Okay.
I did not say anything. No, I was saying that we are doing this because of the changes that are coming in 2012 to learning support by having this, getting more students into 1101 and out of English 99. And the question is, what changes are coming?
Okay, well, the recommendations of the Learning Support Task Force were approved, adopted by the Chancellor and Susan Herbst and the board. And so no later than 2012, students who tested to all 3 areas of learning support will not be admitted. Students who score below the minimum compass scores, which is 62 in reading, 32 in English, and 20 in math, the algebra tests, compass tests, are not admissible unless by presidential exception. It also means that you have to, for the students who are required to take the compass because they don't have an SAT or ACT that exempts them, or the ELA score, or when it becomes the end of the year or end of the course test that the DOE is going to go to. And if they're then exempt by those measures, then they have to take the compass test, and you have to do it before you make an admissions decision. So, and that means you can help them prepare, help guide them to prepare for the compass, so we might see some better results.
And how many allowable semesters?
For English and reading, one course can only be a 1 course, and they have 2 tries, no appeals. For math, it's two semesters, 2 courses, they have 3 tries, no appeals.
And they are, with the no appeal, they are out 1 year.
Yes, except, and we just posted I have one revision, but we just posted the new revised learning support academic affairs handbook section is now posted. One of the things that everybody, and the Learning Support Task Force have primarily people that work in learning support, so they know what they're doing. And what they said is, why should somebody be out 3 years? And so 1 year, why should they be out 1 year and not have any chance of coming back? So what that policy now says is that if a student can demonstrate that they have increased their skills, they can come back before 1 year.
How would they demonstrate that?
Well, the institution can decide that, but first of all, a lot of you have things online for students. We're also, the other thing that we're working on now, and we'll have it in place, is that we're going to have a central repository of compass scores. I've already sent that question out to your VPAAs, and there have been comments that we're getting back, so that, because, you know, say for instance, a student lives in Dahlonega, but they want to go to school at South Georgia, but they don't want to drive down to South Georgia to take the compass test and then find out whether or not they're admitted. Well, there are all sorts of compass testing sites throughout the state, and many institutions are remote sites. And right now, you as institutions have to arrange for students to take that compass somewhere else. The way we're designing it, the system will arrange that. We'll have somebody central over that, probably Leslie Caldwell will lead that. And then there'll be a central repository of scores, so that then those scores can be sent to wherever those students apply, and you don't have to worry about it. In addition to that, what we'd like to do is have the materials resources online, system-wide, for students to take advantage of, and certainly working with you, those of you that already have things, and giving you full credit for what you have, so we can guide students to those resources before they take the compass test. So we hope we'll see a difference.
Could you repeat those scores for the math?
62 for reading, 32 for English, and 20 for math, and that's the algebra compass, not the pre-algebra. And those, I don't know if you know, those are the ATB, actually turned out to be the ATB scores, ability to benefit scores, which are set by federal financial aid. And if a student doesn't have a high school diploma but they want to go to college, then they have to show that they'll have the ability to benefit before financial aid will pay for it. And actually, Leslie Caldwell did a study. He looked at compass scores of students, what their compass scores were and how successful they were in English and reading and math. And that we base those scores on the fact that 50% or more of the students who score those scores actually ultimately exit from learning support. So we know that below that, there's very little chance. And that's why, you know, one of the things you're going to be hearing this afternoon, if you choose to go to whatever you choose to go to, you might want to listen to Tom DeWitt. He's the one that's going to be talking about English and reading. But tomorrow you'll have the opportunity as well. Pearson is here, and in fact, they've really helped me a great deal with this conference. I'm so grateful to them. But they're going to be talking about and demonstrating their My Foundations Lab. And this is their product that is really geared to those students who aren't really even ready for our learning support classes. So I think that's going to be very interesting to people. And tomorrow also, Fabiola Aurelian from Atlanta Metropolitan College, she said her title changed and she thought someone had told me, but she's going to talk about their pre-matriculation program. And they of course, they admit these students now because they can, but they actually, students that score too low on the compass, they have developed a pre-matriculation program that those students have to go through first before they can go into their learning support classes. So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking the university system can do to help those students that fall in that gap, because until the DOE has a chance to, or does whatever they need to make sure these kids are prepared before they get a high school diploma, we're going to be seeing them, and we need to do something to help them. Yeah.
Are the technical colleges following this, or are they going to allow students who have lower scores?
They are, well, I'll tell you, they are not going to exempt anyone. They have, I don't know if you're aware, they have many more levels. They have about 5 levels of English and math. I'm not sure about reading, so they can start at a lower level than we can. But they already do not give federal financial aid to students who score below those scores. In fact, they were flabbergasted that we ever did, although really the rule is for students who don't have a high school diploma, and we don't admit anybody that doesn't have a high school diploma or equivalent. But what they have that we don't is the HOPE grant. And as you know, the HOPE grant was not, you know, they're still going to be able to get it, although they are now, their students are also going to have to maintain a certain GPA to keep that HOPE grant. So I think they're worried about that.
So it's possible that students that aren't allowed in can go to the technical
Definitely.
college, get their skills up, and then come back and retest.
Definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask if anyone is from Gainesville College in the room.
Yes.
I wanted to point out, and thank you so much, they have practice tests online. You all might make those. 7 practice tests for the English and 1 on the reading. And what a joy and how helpful that is.
I just wanted everybody to be aware. I hope you continue to share those.
Well, that's the kind of thing, we're gonna be contacting Gainesville and everyone else of you, because I think Georgia Perimeter has some things too. You know, and I think a lot of you do, and see if we can just centralize that. Not that we want to take away your website, but also have another avenue when students go in where they will see that, giving you full credit, but make that resource available so that students are aware of it. Yeah.
Did you say these new guidelines are posted online?
They are now.
They are now?
Mhm. And in the
site is-
Academic Affairs Handbook, under academic, it's divided into like student affairs, academic affairs, or, you know, that 4 major sections. So it's under academic programs and it's under learning support.
For which school?
This is for everybody. This is the,
Just anywhere,
now this is the policy.
right.
Yeah.
So no, it's.
The Board of Regents, I think
That's
it's
what I'm
policy.
thinking,
It's
okay.
under
Yeah, it's the Board of Regents. Yeah. Academic Affairs Handbook.
Well, thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed
and-
talking with you.
Thank you.